I don't know if you can tell, but I have a little bit of a problem. The problem is I haven't been able to actually use my garage in about 4 weeks, basically ever since I bought my kayak. And honestly, it's because there's literally no room right now. I have a kayak here, which is Cheerwine. I have the new one, the Baja Blast, and I have a table where I use like to prepare things, do tackle things, film videos. This is not a big space. I don't know if you can see. It's not that big. It's a one-car garage. And the biggest issue is because now I have two kayaks, I don't really have room for much. So today, the plan is super simple. I need to build a kayak table where I can store both kayaks. And that's what we're going to do. So this morning, I went out and I bought a bunch of wood. We're going to cut that wood here now. We're going to spend the next 2 days. It's not really going to take 2 days, actually, but we're going to spend the next 2 days building out this kayak table. The thing is, I don't actually have that much time. In fact, it's the middle of the day now. Like I said, I went in the morning to buy all the lumber. That took about 30 minutes. I have about 2 hours here this afternoon to do all my cuts, which I'm going to do, and then maybe some time tonight to put it together, but if not, again, 2 hours tomorrow to put it all together. So the plan is do all the cuts now. I'll put all the materials that I bought, all the cuts here as well if you want to follow along, but I've done a ton of research, and it's kind of a different arrangement of different things that I've seen online, but essentially the plan is pretty simple. I'm going to have a table on the top with some carpeted 2x4s that the kayak will sit on. And then I will also have a bottom shelf, which is going to be more flat, that this kayak will sit on. If I ever decide to sell this kayak, I can then use that. Whoa. If I ever decide to sell this kayak, I will use that bottom as like shelving and space for like paddles and accessories and things like that. But essentially, the plan is going to be pretty simple. It is going to be on wheels, so I can wheel it around, make things a lot easier to move things out of the way. Take the kayak to the SUV, so instead of dragging it, I can just load it on the table, wheel it in, wheel it out. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be super simple. It's going to be really, really cool. I'm super pumped to not only have that, but to also take back this garage of mine and make it super easy and super awesome. I'm pumped. Hopefully you're pumped. Hopefully I've been in focus. But we're going to do that. So we're going to go to the side of the house, because last time I built this table over here, there was so much sawdust in here. I was spending weeks cleaning sawdust out of my reels, out of all my tackle. It was no fun. So we're going to go out, we're going to start cutting. We're going to do that right now. So the first thing I did was start cutting my main supports. I used 4x4s because I wanted something that would be able to handle the weight of two kayaks with gear. And I also wanted to be able to move around without worrying about it breaking. I could have screwed two 2x4s together, but who wants to do that? I mean, you can, but this was easier for me. Now, since I didn't have a big enough saw, I had to cut my 4x4s using 3 cuts. You can look it up on YouTube, how to cut a 4x4 with a circular saw, and see how I did it. But essentially, I made my first cut, then rotated it, made my second cut, and then my third cut, and then it was cut. Now, I'm not the best with the circular saw, so what I did was I cut my 2.5 foot supports off of the ends of my 4x4s, so that even if I couldn't cut a nice clean cut, I had the milled clean edges that I could use to put my casters on, so it was nice and flat. Once I was done with the supports, I started cutting all of my 2x4s to the proper sizes. I needed 4 cuts at 4.5 feet, and the rest were 3.5 feet. The next day I started putting everything together. I assumed my floor was level enough for this project, so I used the milled sides face down of my 4x4s to start building the outer frame. I'm using carpenter screws to attach everything together except for the carpet and the casters. Once I did the bottom, I flipped it over and did the top. Same process, try to keep it square, use the 4x4 to help with that, and use some wood screws to attach it. Looking back, I should have done the middle supports before I flipped it over and started on this side, so that I could have just done the casters and saved the next flip, but I didn't. So I actually laid the top supports flat side up, which is the 4-inch side of the 2x4, so that there was more surface area so that the runners that I never ended up installing could sit. More on that later. But once I was done with that, it was time for casters. These are 4-inch casters that I bought off Amazon. They're awesome, and I just used the screws that came with it. You can use lag bolts if you want to, but I've used these in the past. They're the same casters that I have on my table that you see in the background. I'm very happy with them, so I just used the screws that came with them. One thing to note, when you're picking out your lumber, make sure there's no knots in the ends of your 4x4s, because if you screw into one of those, it's going to just drill it all out. So just make sure that you're using knotless 4x4s. After attaching all the casters, it was time to flip this bad boy over. And before I did that, I locked the wheels so it wouldn't roll back when I flipped it. This is easier with 2 people, but it's just me today, so I locked those wheels, flipped that sucker over, and we're good to go. Now that the frame was done, I started attaching the carpet. This is your standard boat carpet. I bought it on Amazon as well. I use screws to attach it because I don't have a staple gun, and if I ever need to replace the carpet from wear and tear, I can just remove the screws, which is easier than pulling staples. After the carpet was attached, I cut off all the excess and almost cut off my fingertip doing so. Talk about a close call. Look at that. Whew. So please be careful when you do this. Once the carpet was all trimmed, it was time to move the kayaks out and clean everything up so I can load it on the kayak table. The kayaks fit perfectly on the table. Neighbor Jimbo was nice enough to help me put the Baja Blast on top where she belongs, and we got her moved into place. All right, whew. We got her done. We are all set. That took a lot of work, but honestly, I'm happy with it. It's a little bit taller than I was expecting because I forgot to account for the height of the kayak itself, but honestly, I'm kind of glad it's this tall because now as I'm working here, like I have some gear tracks that I'm going to install right here. Now I don't have to worry about like bending over or anything like that. It's right here at chest height. And yeah, it does everything that I want it to do. We got the Baja Blast up here on top. We got Cheerwine down here at the bottom. And we got all this floor space back. Like I lost all the way to right here where I'm standing right now. And we got it back. Now, there's still a mess over here that I need to take care of because as anyone knows who does a project like this, when you start building, it goes all kinds of crazy. Things end up everywhere. And you make a mess to clean up a mess. So that's what I ended up doing. All in all, I'd say I probably spent a total of like 4 hours max, maybe, putting this together. I made some changes midway through. Originally, I was going to put some runners. In fact, I had them carpeted and everything. But then I decided if I ever want to flip this thing over and do some work, it's going to be hard to do that with runners. So I decided just to carpet the supports. You can, like I mentioned in the beginning, put the bottom, put like a sheet of plywood, turn it into a shelf. And I might still do that in the future, but for now, since it's only going to hold the kayak, left it as is. I'm happy with that there. I'm moving around a lot because I'm gassed. It is hotter than hot. It's like, it was a cold, there was a cold front that came through and made everything nice and cold. It was amazing. 55 degrees in the morning, and now it is gone. It is 100 and something degrees in this garage right now. I'm baking. But everything I used is going to be in the description. The carpet, the casters, the material list will be in the description. The cuts that I used, because I made some changes along the way, will also be in the description. I might even include a sketch of what I did here. It's not going to be great. It'll be like a crude little sketch. But if you want it, it'll be available to you. If you want to copy this design, please, by all means, do. I did not come up with this. I mean, I guess I technically did because I made some changes that other people didn't do. But overall, it's doing the job. I'm storing my kayaks. I can now wheel them in and out of here as easy as possible. When and if I ever get a truck, guess what? Boom, I can just wheel this up to the truck, put it on the truck, and we can call it a day. I'm hot. I'm going to have a popsicle. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully you guys use this and build something of your own. If you end up building something, or if you use any of this that I've used here and you decide to build your own, please tag me. Let me know. I want to see. I am so happy with this. Like, it's stable. It holds up very well. I know there are some things. I know some of you in the comments are going to be like, well, I would have done this or I would have done that. That's not going to be that strong. Only time will tell. I don't need it to be livable. I just need it to hold some kayaks. And that's it. There's a fly flying around. Yeah. Now that I have this, the next step is going to start putting some modifications on the kayak. A bunch of cool things that I'm excited to do. Hopefully you guys stick around for that. And if it's something that you guys are into, feel free to subscribe. Happy fishing. God bless.